What's up, ballers? Jacob here with All Drive No Drop, and today I'm talking about how do you choose which pickleball paddle shape is right for you. A lot of people have been asking me, how do you choose your shape? Which shape should I be choosing? You know, so I figured I'm gonna give you my thoughts on how you pick your shape, but first I have to define the paddle shapes because different people define paddle shapes different ways. I mean, there's really three main categories. You have an elongated, and you have a hybrid, and then you have a standard. So then there's subcategories, but basically, let's break it down. We'll put it on the screen. The elongateds are 16.5 inches in length, and then there are paddles that are longer. I call them blades that are over 16.5, but basically you're talking about most elongated paddles being 16.5 inches. And then we have the hybrid shapes, which are any paddles that range between 16.0 inches and 16.5. Most hybrids are 16.25 to 16.3 inches in length, but it could be anywhere between that 16 and 16.5. And then we have standard and wide body paddles, which are basically paddles that are 16 inches in length or shorter, and then specifically standards are 16 by 8 inches, which is kind of like the original pickleball paddle shape. And then wide bodies are under 16 inches, but wider than 8 inches. Because you have those regulations, the length plus the width can't be over 24 inches for the USAP rules. So for the purposes of this video, we'll just talk about wide body / standard. We'll group those together, and then hybrids, and then elongateds and blades will be stacked together. So I'm gonna break down the shapes for you and their pros and cons, and then if you're still confused by the end, I do have a good trick to help figure out which one's right for you. Just wait till the end and I will tell you what that is. So starting out, we'll start with the wide bodies and standards. In this example, we have a Ronbus FX.R2. That is the classic standard shape. And then for a wide body, we have the Spartus Apollo, you know, wider than 8 inches, shorter than 16. So the standard and wide bodies, the pros are you have a wider sweet spot because the paddle width is wider, and you're going to have more mass in the center there. It's going to be a more stable paddle. They're going to have higher twist weights. They're usually going to have lower swing weights, so that means they're just going to be more stable in your hands. They're going to feel faster in your hands. So those are the pros. You're going to have faster hands. You're going to have a wider sweet spot. You're going to have less twisting in your hands. But then some of the cons, you're going to have less reach because it's a shorter paddle. And then you're also going to usually have less power. These are just general rules for the paddles, but there are, of course, exceptions. So pros, wider sweet spot, faster hands, and more stable. Cons, less reach and less power. So for wide bodies, who are they recommended for? Honestly, anyone. Beginners, intermediate, advanced, wide bodies can be played by anyone, and they're just a great shape that has just recently started to resurge, including me using them quite a bit. So let's move on to the hybrids. So the hybrid shape was first popularized by 6-0, and theirs gets wider towards the top, but a lot of them are just, you know, like 16.25 or 16.3 inches and all the same width. This one gets wider towards the top. These are great for that in between. You want something that gives you a little bit more reach, but you want something that also gives you a little bit of wider sweet spot, say like the Honolulu J2K or the 6-0 double black diamond. They give you kind of a best in between elongated and wide body. You get the a little bit wider sweet spot, you get a bit more reach, you still get decent hand speed, and you get a little bit more power. So it's a good blend if you're thinking. And then you also got the Mark 1 as another hybrid option. And most of these hybrid options come in like 5.3 to 5.5 inch handles, which gives you enough room for the two-handed backhands. And the good thing about the wide body standard paddles is they're also making those with the 5.5 inch handles. So handle length is no longer a restriction to your shape. So let's get into elongated paddles and what the pros and cons of those are. So the elongated paddles traditionally are 16.5 inches by 7.5 inches. They're not all the exact same length, but generally 16.5 inches is what the elongated paddles are. So with the elongated paddles, you're getting a sweet spot that is a little farther away from your hand. So a lot of tennis players like that. That's going to be a pro for some, it could be a con for others. You get the most reach out of the elongated paddles compared to the hybrid and standard, so if you're really maximizing your reach or you just think you need more reach, then the elongated is going to be the option. You just have a little tighter sweet spot, it's going to be longer but narrower. So that's kind of like what the pros and the cons are. For tennis players, usually you probably get the most spin out of elongated paddles, and then for non-tennis players, it seems like wide body standard paddles, they get more spin. That's just the generalization that I've seen, but some people might have different experiences. So you got the Shogun from Bread and Butter as an example for an elongated, and then a Mavericks Havoc 15 Pro. This is still an elongated paddle, but they cut the corners to lower the swing weight because the elongated paddles are going to be the slowest paddles in your hand. So if you really want more hand speed at the net, then the elongated paddles aren't going to be the option. If you're okay with the little bit of a higher swing weight and slower hands at the net, then the elongated paddles will be your choice. And then another one, the Ronbus Pulsar FX.R1. Also, here's an example of a blade paddle. This is the longest possible length you can go. You can't go past 17 inches. This is the Pickleball Apes Pro Line Energy. This is a 17-inch paddle. So if you really hit on up, and you're looking to maximize your reach, then this would be the shape for you. There's not too many people that make paddles this length, so your options are limited. The Pickleball Apes Pro Line Energy honestly has been my favorite of that 17-inch. If you're still not sure which shape is right for you, I have a good trick that will help you figure that out. Okay, so if you're like, I heard everything you said, Jacob, I heard everything, I listened to every word, I put it on repeat, and I still am not sure which paddle shape is right for me. Well, okay, I want you to grab your paddle. Go grab your paddle that you use the most, and hopefully it's a carbon fiber paddle, because if it doesn't, or a Kevlar paddle, because if it's not, this trick might not work for you. But it could work. Basically, look at your paddle, and you see the ball dust that is collected. If your ball dust is going out wider, and say you're playing with an elongated paddle, and your ball dust tends to go out wider more, you probably want to go to a hybrid or a wide body paddle. If you're playing with a hybrid paddle and you see this ball dust and it's kind of just like all over, that's probably the right shape for you. If you're playing with a wide body paddle and your ball dust isn't really going wider and it's going more towards the top, then you probably want to go to a hybrid or elongated. So let the ball dust show you. This is where you're hitting. If you're hitting more to the sides, then you're going to want that wide body. If you're hitting kind of just all around top wide, a hybrid's probably the best option for you. If your ball dust tends to go towards the top, you're going to want an elongated. That's my simplest trick. I think it just makes a lot of sense to look how you hit the ball, where you're usually making contact, and that can determine the shape for you. And then if you want to go towards some of those pros and cons of the specific shapes, then those will help guide you as well. And if you still have questions, drop them in the comments. I'm happy to answer. If you want to define your playing style and you think that maybe you have a certain scenario, I'll help guide you towards there. And then if you want to narrow down the specific paddle in those paddle shapes, I'm going to link some of my favorite paddles that I have reviews on that I recommend, so you can help make that decision about which paddle specifically to get. But this was to help you decide which shape you want to get you started on your road to picking the best pickleball paddle for your game. And as always, feel free to leave any comments, subscribe, it really helps grow the channel, smash the like if you want to, and then as always, go play some pickleball. Hope you enjoy your day.